I went from 0 to 25,000 LinkedIn followers in 1 year and a half, and I will sharing the exact strategy I've used to grow that fast. So why even listen to what I say? I've also trained my team to achieve the same kind of results. As an example, Alex, my business partner and COO of CodeLikeU, went from 4,000 to 24,000 followers in a bit over a year. Fivos, our head of growth at CodeLikeU, gained 10K followers in 7 months. Dan, our head of GTM at CodeLikeU, gained 6K followers in half a year. Sohail reached 6,000 followers within a few months. Ivan, who's now at 7,000 followers, is going viral every week since receiving my training. And even Monica passed 3,000 followers after a month, despite getting banned at 9,000 followers. Why does this matter? I personally generated close to 4 million impressions this year. We're talking about founders, CEOs, CMOs, CROs, and VPs of sales of well-funded companies. If you're interested in growing your LinkedIn audience, you probably already know your potential audience has a higher purchasing power than on most other social platforms. And the numbers don't lie. Generating 4 million plus impressions in a single quarter booked us 356 meetings, and this was responsible for adding 80,000 in monthly recurring revenue for our company. So how can you replicate that for yourself and for your team? Let's jump right in. First, you should know you will need to create a lot of content. You probably heard it for audience growth on other channels, and unfortunately, LinkedIn is no exception to the rule. Consistency is the single most important factor in audience growth. In the beginning, you want to force yourself to post 3 to ideally 5+ times per week and stick to the schedule no matter what. Forget about putting out the best quality content possible. Quantity should be your focus. Quantity breeds quality. You don't know what a good post looks like in the beginning. You will know after publishing 100+ content pieces. And so the reason why you need to be consistent is because getting results will take time. So you will need both consistency and patience. And just so you know, I didn't start getting any results before 1 month and a half of posting. So the plan for me was, initially, I just told myself, I will post for the next 3 months, whatever happens. And then if nothing comes out of that, then I will just find another way to promote my business. So for the first 31 posts, I had already been posting for 1 month and a half. Nothing happened. I was publishing, I would be getting a few likes here and there, but I didn't get any business from LinkedIn. And I remember, I think it was my 31st or my 32nd post, I was trying to find some excuses not to post. At some point, for some reason, I don't know what happened, I just gathered the last bit of strength and courage I had, and I just figured, you know what, Mish, don't be a let's just find some to publish, and then we'll go to sleep. And so I just came back to my desk. I think I found AI resources that you could leverage to learn about sales. I hit the publish button and then I went to sleep. And the next day, I just woke up to an insane amount of likes and impressions. So the post had gone completely viral. And from just this post, I think I generated 100,000 of impressions, which booked me 25 meetings. I signed 4 clients. And so from one day to the next, I went from 6K per month to 15K per month. And so somehow you could consider this to come from luck, but the only way you can be lucky is by being consistent, and the only way you will find some winning formats is by posting consistently. That said, I already have a set of proven formats and I can share with you. And so what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna walk you through the formats I use and I train my team on to generate results on LinkedIn. So the best way to have consistently good publication ideas is to brainstorm recurring topics that you can publish every week. So let me give you some examples from my own content. My company CodeLikeU is a sales prospecting agency, but on top of that, we compare the latest sales technologies. And if you know a bit about this space, you know there are a lot of tools, which means a lot of opportunities to educate the market on these tools. And so one of the first ideas I've had to have some consistent posts that I could publish every week was to talk about these sales tools. So I'm just gonna show you what this can look like. As you can see here, there are a lot of different categories. So AI deal intelligence, AI data enrichment tools, AI visitor identification tools, AI intent signal tools, and so on and so on and so on. And so one of the posts that I do pretty frequently that works a lot is tools carousels. And so here, for example, what you can see is I'm describing the AI agents category and I'm adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tools that are AI agents. And if you look at the impression of the post, this has 36,000 impressions. But this is pretty easy to make. And actually, I can replicate that to a lot of other categories. As you can see, I did the exact same for intent signal tools, and these had 16,000 impressions. I've done the same for the most exciting AI sales tools categories. So this time I actually put 4 or 5 different categories in one single carousel. And then I described some tools that you could use for this. So you've got the AI agents, and you've got the AI all-in-one prospecting tools, and then you've got some others and others. These had 19,000 impressions, and I did something similar with intent signal tools. And as you can see, these had 25,000 impressions as well. The takeaway here is that if I want to plan my content for a month, I already know that each week, for example, I could look at a category of tools that are helpful to people, that allow them to do their job better, and I could make a nicely designed carousel out of these tools. One thing I want to say about this carousel is, if you can, you should outsource them as fast as possible. One thing that I know about LinkedIn and I've noticed, a great carousel will have a huge impact in increasing the reach of your post. You could write the exact same thing, but just adding a nicely designed visual could go as far as 3xing or 4xing the reach of your post, which means 3xing or 4xing the potential opportunities you get from publishing content on LinkedIn. And to illustrate that, I want to showcase some of my best performing content on LinkedIn. And one pattern you will notice is that there is always a great design attached to it. So for example, we've got this publication where I've talked about the fact that on our website we have 2,000 sales tech platforms. And one thing I've done is I had this infographic made that has all of the different tools across all of the categories. And the results of that is that we got hundreds of thousands impressions on this post. And one of the big reasons for that is because a lot of people were actually asking to get this infographic in even higher definition, as they wanted to see it in more details. Another post that worked pretty well is the schema, where I've been showing how and every tools we use across our company, and I've shown how these tools are interconnected. As you can see, it's a nice visuals. This has 25,000 impressions and almost 1,000 likes. And once again, I'm completely convinced that I would never have had this amount of impressions if it was not for this schema. One last example coming from our head of demand generation, Ivan, is this very nicely designed GTM funnel tech stack. So instead of just talking about sales tools, he showcased a lot of the tools we use with a nice design of a schema. And as you can see, this post has had 476 likes. I know from Ivan that this has generated at least 70 to 80,000 impressions. So once again, if you're gonna make a lot of effort crafting your post, then invest in a good designer that can improve the visual or can create some visuals for you so that you can 3x and 4x the impressions without any other efforts, because you will be the one doing these visuals. Another kind of content that you can make that's pretty evergreen is talking about your campaigns or client wins. So if you have a service-based business, or even if you have a SaaS, showcasing how your clients are getting great results from your product is a great way to make content, as long as you have nice visuals attached to it. And so what's nice about this is you can actually deploy these posts across several formats. For example, you could do some carousel of tools, you could make a video walkthrough, you could make some GIFs. So for example, some of the things I've done is here, for example, we had a campaign that generated 145 leads for one of our clients, and I explained the exact steps we've used within this tool called Lemlist to get these results. But what you can see here is that I also made a carousel out of it, and so each slide describes what we've done. And so the fact that I'm explaining step by step how we've generated these results has a great impact on the results I'm getting in terms of impressions from this post. Another way you can present this is you can make a video. So here, for example, I was running a LinkedIn campaign that was getting a 45% connection acceptance rate. And what I've done is I made a video walkthrough where I explain step by step how I've achieved these results. And so I've been showcasing the exact steps I've taken to generate these results. And this makes for some great content, because as you can see, I get 35,000 impressions on this post. But the best thing about that is you're actually showcasing social proof at the same time. So if you can present client results in a visually appealing way, you will both get a good amount of reach on this post, but on top of that, you will be able to generate a good amount of meetings, because these showcase your expertise real time. Whatever product or service you're running, it's really as simple as looking at your client screen and breaking these down, and you could easily do that once per week. So now with carousels of tools and with those client screens, you actually have 2 great content ideas that you can publish every single week. Now on LinkedIn, there are some small hacks you can use to greatly increase the reach of your post. And one of these is using what we call giveaway posts. The whole idea is to publish a piece of content that teases a better or longer form piece of content. So for example, let's say I'm talking about a campaign I ran for some clients that had some great results. I'm going to briefly explain what I've done. And instead of explaining everything, what I would do is I would say, if you want to get everything I've done, the exact process, then you should like plus comment. And the reason why you do this is because what is going to happen is that there will be a lot of like and a lot of comments. And so the algorithm of LinkedIn will believe that your post is getting viral. And so this will be pushed to even more people. So for example, our head of GTM, Dan, made this. So he made a post where he explains one of the campaigns he ran that generated 2 opportunities in less than 24 hours. And at the end of the post, he says, if you want to receive a custom clickable, a full recording of the webinar, and the exact messaging framework and email copy we use for this, he has to like plus comment. And what happens is that he got 996 comments and 584 likes. And I know for a fact that this post generated over 100,000 impressions. For example, if you look at this post, I did something where I said to people, I will share the entire process if you ask nicely. And so I had 400 comments on this, which generated 92,000 impressions. And I think the most crazy example of this is our head of growth, Fivos, who created a copywriting GPT bot, told people to like plus comment GPT, and got 2,000 comments from this. I don't even know how many impressions it generated from this. I think it must have generated well over 300,000 impressions. So you can imagine the amount of potential business opportunities we've gotten from that. Another kind of post that can resonate pretty well with your audience is when you share your wins and your journey with your audience, as long as you attach some learnings to this. So here, for example, my business partner Alex made a whole post about how we scaled the CallIQ team from 2 to 17 in 12 months. And he talked about the 4 main lessons he learned. And then he actually put a picture of our team building in Greece. And as you can see, this has had 400 likes, which probably has generated around 40,000 impressions. So this kind of posts, which are like a compilation of your learnings, tend to work pretty well. I've actually done something similar where I explained how we bootstrap our company from 0 to 2.5 million. This was 2 months ago. So since then, we grew a little bit, and I've talked about the exact things I would do if I had to start all over again. And I finished with a nice picture of me in Rio. This has had 382 likes and 30,000 impressions. So this is a pretty good one. This allows you to go a bit more personal. Now, if you haven't gotten enough content ideas from just these examples, I have a small hack I want to share with you. And the whole idea here is that you can look at the best content creators on the platform. So you can use this extension called Clio on your favorite creators. And what it will do is that it will actually rank the post from descending order from the most liked ones to the least liked ones, which means that you can actually very easily access to proven formats that you can gain inspiration from. Let me show you an example. So one of the best creators on the platform, Adam Robinson. And so if you use the Clio extension on him, you'll see his best all-time post. So what we can do is we can check his best or his most liked post just for this year. As you look at this post, you can actually gain inspiration from the content formats. So for example, in this case, his most liked post this year is him explaining the story of how in the last 10 years, he's bootstrapped his company from 0 to 1 million in ARR 2 times. And then he's talking about the 6 biggest piece of advices that he would give anybody to do the same. And so once again, you cannot copy paste this post because it's obviously not your experience. But what you want to do is you want to get inspiration in the formatting of the post. If you look at the post itself, what you'll notice is that in the hook is sharing a lot of numbers. That's something that worked pretty well. In 10 years, I've bootstrapped 0 to 1 million. Here are the 6 biggest pieces of advice. And so one thing you can do when you look at this post is you can look at the format and then rewrite it with something that's relevant to your experience. For example, Adam is saying that in 10 years, he's bootstrapped to 0 to 1 million twice. In my case, I've only bootstrapped 1 time an agency to 0 to 3 million, which I believe is still a great hook. And then I can also share my biggest pieces of advice. And obviously the advice I will be sharing will be a bit different. I've actually done so in a post on my 30th birthday where I described how I failed at 7 businesses in the past 5 to 7 years. And I described all of the lessons I've learned, and the post did pretty well. I don't know if it was because it was my birthday or if it was because I've gained inspiration from this proven template. But the idea here is that I can do this, from this post. And if I didn't find inspiration on this one, you can look at other posts he made and try to see if there are some kind of post that worked pretty well for you. You know, for example, here, one of his best performing posts is when he announces that his new company hit 2 million in annual recurring revenue just 6 weeks after crossing 1 million. So I guess this makes some great content. But yeah, like the idea is that you want to find some good content creators and see if there is some inspiration you can gain from this. So Adam is one of the one I like a lot. Another one I like a lot is called Pierre Erubel. And the reason why I like Pierre's content is because it's very visual. So you know, as I was describing, just a great visual could increase the reach of your post by a lot. I noticed that that's something that Adam Robinson doesn't do that much, but I'm pretty sure that if he would be writing the exact same post and adding the kind of visuals that Pierre here is adding to his post, he would get even more impressions and likes and these potential business opportunities. And so here, for example, you can see the most liked post from Pierre in 2024 is this listicle of 21 B2B marketing tactics. But as you can see, he made a nice visual with it. And so you can look at this and translate that to what you do. For example, here, Pierre is in the marketing niche. I had a friend who was doing crypto marketing, so I was suggesting to him you could use a similar visuals, but instead of it being 21 B2B marketing tactics, could be 20 crypto marketing tactics. In my case, because we are in the outbound sales niche, I could say 21 AI sales tactics, and then I could add them based on how fast you can get results and how much investment you need to put out. Like the whole idea is that this is a winning format. It has had 8,000 likes. If you manage to package value in a similar way, you will get results. Now that we've discussed how to find content ideas, I want to discuss how to plan your content. And so in the beginning, what I was doing is I used to have this content ideation templates because I realized that I had like a way to write content that was in 4 steps. So I would have an idea and I would note it down in my Apple Notes. And then once I had some time and I was at my desk, I would develop this idea a little bit. And then right before posting, I would just finalize some details and then it would be ready to be published. And then on the day that I was supposed to post, I would just hit the publish button. And then one thing that you would notice about LinkedIn is that people forget about your content pretty fast. And so if you've had a great piece of content, one thing you can do is actually repurpose this content, say 2 to 3 months later. And so this is something I was doing. Every time I would have content piece that would perform well, then I would put it in the content repurposing column. And so I used to do it this way because this was how I was planning my posts. I think it's great, but recently I've actually changed the way I plan my content and now I use content calendar. The reason why I do that is because I realized that you typically waste a lot of time, not just writing your post, but not knowing what you want to post about. And it's pretty weird, but you would have say 4 or 5 different ideas and you could waste 15, 13 minutes just figuring out which one of these should I post about. And so what I do now is I have this content calendar, which now looks like a mess. If you can look maybe at how it was looking like in the beginning when I was religiously putting content in it. Every time I have an idea, I add it to my content calendar. And the idea is because it's a content calendar, I can actually categorize by week based on post formats. And so, for example, I was mentioning that I like to use some weekly topics. So for example, one thing I can do is I can say, okay, every week I will have a carousel of tools. And so I can already plan the tool carousel for the 7th, for the 14th, for the 21st, and for the 28th. And then one other thing I can do and will be doing was to say, I like to share a client wins. So I could say, okay, now every week, one thing I want to do is I want to have one client win. So I can already, once again, plan this ahead of time. So I almost already have 8 content posts ready and I can continue to do the same and so on and so on and so on. So now let's say you have all of your content ideas. You've planned everything inside of your content calendar. You've got all of your visuals ready. It's now time to post. That said, before just going about posting and hoping for results to come, you should know that there are a few things you can do on LinkedIn that will greatly increase your reach. And so one thing you can do is commenting a lot. And I want to tell you a little story about that to illustrate my point. I think around a year ago, I've read this experiment by a guy that was wondering what would get him the most views on his LinkedIn profile. And he was wondering if commenting could get him more views than just simply posting. And the thing is, in the beginning, if you just focus on posting because you have a small audience, what will happen is that your post will not get exposed to that many people. One thing though is that if you comment on the post of someone who has 100,000 followers and your comment is, say, one of the most liked comments, and your comment could actually get tens of thousands of views while your posts have way less. And in LinkedIn, it's pretty easy to see your comments and then wonder who you are and then click on your profile link and end up on your profile, which means that commenting should actually be part of your audience growth strategy. What this guy did, story of the experiment, is that for a week, he just posted on LinkedIn. Another week, he just commented on LinkedIn. And then the last week, he did both posting plus comment. As you can guess, when he did both, he actually had more views than in the 2 other weeks. But one thing he noticed is that he got more profile views in the week where he was just commenting than in the week where he was just posting, which means that commenting is almost, if not more, important than posting on LinkedIn. And so commenting is good, but you want to comment on people who are in the same niche as you. The only issue with LinkedIn is that you can get lost in the feed pretty easily. And so one thing I like to do is to create engagement lists based on creators that I like, so that if I want to comment real quick to get some profile views and to please the algorithm, I can do that without wasting too much time on LinkedIn. But essentially, if you go on your LinkedIn, something you can do so that you don't get random posts in your feed, like here, a post of Donald Trump, what you can do is just click enter in the search bar and then can select posts. And once you select posts, you can select members from whom you want to see the post. So for example, I was talking about Adam Robinson, who makes some great content. A guy called Pierre also makes some great content. And I could add some people from my team. So now I can add Alex, I can add Monica, and I can add my friend Jérémy Andillon. And so what will happen here is that as I click on show results, I now have a feed that can sort by most recent posts, which means that if I want to comment on a lot of posts which are relevant to what I do, I can now simply scroll down here and add a comment or a like and so on. So here, for example, now I'm not distracted by random people in the algorithm. I just have people I want to comment on. And so another way to get comments on your post is by looking at people who commented your previous post, because if they commented previously, it means that I'm probably gonna want to comment on your post if you support them as well on their posts. When you do publish your post, what you want to do is you want to be here in the first 30 minutes ideally, and you want to reply to as many comments as possible. What you want to do is you want to create conversations in your LinkedIn comments section. And the reason for that is because if LinkedIn feels like your post is creating discussions, it will want to expose these to more people. And so for the first 30 minutes, it's essential that you reply back to all of the comments. This will maximize your chances of your post going crazy. So now that you know how to find proven content ideas, that you know how to organize your content, that you know how to leverage comments to increase your reach, and that you know that you should reply to every comment to maximize your chances of going viral, the next thing to do is to start posting. And once you do start posting consistently and you start getting engagement coming on your post, the next thing you want to do, you will want to create a high converting funnel that turn these engagement leads into clients. And I actually recorded another video on the topic. It will appear right here or here that I would recommend that you listen to. Thanks for watching today. Have a nice one. Ciao, ciao.